Hey guys, OFSREagle here bringing you a brand new video today. Today I am really excited to bring you the start of a new series I'm doing. It's going to be a little bit of a departure from the normal type of video I've done. I'm going to keep it really short here, but I've just been thinking about what I'm going to do for my channel since I've wrapped up the the skill jump tutorial videos, things of that nature. I still like that and I still love doing them, but I feel for the overall health and progression of me as a player, I'm going to be starting a different approach to the content I'm bringing you guys. As you guys know, in my first video that I ever made for Halo, I said that I'm looking to give advice to you guys from one player to another. And at the time I was pretty average, and now I've obviously increased in skill and knowledge. But I still feel that that still applies. I'm looking to share my journey in learning how to play Halo and learning to get better and go competitive with you guys and share my experience. So with this series, what I'm going to be doing is taking a game that I see that I could have, that things I did well or things I did bad or maybe a little bit of both, and going to be doing like a gameplay review. If you guys don't know, I teach lessons. I've said that in previous videos, but a lot of times what I do for private lessons is I go into theater mode with them and I look over film and I break down certain things. And you know, one 12-minute game, there can be a lot to critique. So in this, I'm not going to be going over the whole gameplay and breaking down everything. What I'm going to be doing is highlighting 3 or 4 things per episode of things I could have done better, things I did well, and things I didn't do well, and then look on how we can improve it together. Also, one of my goals with this is sharing with you guys and showing you guys how to look at your own gameplay. There have been quite a few pro players who have gone on record saying if you don't take the time to review film after a game or after a scrim, you're really hindering yourself from getting better. That's one of the best tools at your disposal in order to increase your skill as a Halo 5 player. So that's what I've taken into account here, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys. So it may have to do with some skill jumps, it may have to do with some gameplay or gunfight meta, things of that nature. So I look forward to just sharing that with you guys. So now let's get into it. This is Refuge CTF Time Return, and if you, just a preface, I will be solo queuing this whole series. Most people solo queue, sadly, that's just how it works, and there's a lot of negative things associated with that, but there's nothing wrong with reviewing film. Even if you didn't play with any teammates or have any callouts or communication, you can still look at what you did and what you could have done better. So I have some things highlighted that I'm going to go through, and I'm just going to jump to those timestamps as we go. So we're on blue side for the Refuge CTF, and we're going to go to me real quick, and we're going to start from here. So the first thing that I'm going to point out, I will be hopping in between different points of the game just to emphasize one point. But the first thing is the thrust slide from blue spawn over here from blue, this like blue little object over here, and you can thrust slide up to bridge without clambering. And I do that successfully here. Alright, and so I land without a clamber, and that's really good. And whenever you can do a jump without a clamber, that's what you want to go for because it removes animation time and you're able to shoot faster. It's just overall a better scenario. So let's go ahead and look at that again from a third-person view, because I'm going to highlight something I attempt it later and I don't succeed with that, and we'll look at why in a second. Okay. So that worked out there. I'm actually going to skip to 706 because I actually attempted again and I fail. So I want to look at why I failed that jump. I go for it, right? And as you see, I immediately just dropped down to the ground. I thought I attempted it the same way. And so after I reviewed it and saw that, I realized I must have done something different. So I went and looked, and what I found is that you have to either commit to the thrust slide animation and then do a jump at the end and then hold crouch in order to get up here like I did at the beginning, As you see right here, I do thrust slide, but I do the thrust slide animation, right? And where I start the animation is actually, I start the thrust slide right about here on it. And then also the angle, it was kind of starting at this corner, bottom left edge, and then kind of went to the top right edge, and that was kind of my trajectory, right? And in the instance where I didn't do it, I actually shortened up my runway by quite a bit. If you see, this is a certain distance from here to here, and when I attempted it, I was more here to there, so I didn't have the full runway possible to actually commit and do the thrust. And so after some experimentation, I found that if you don't commit to the full thrust slide animation, slide, jump, hold, crouch, and then you'll be able to get up there without clambering, you're gonna, if you don't finish out the animation, you're gonna drop like I did at that second example. Or what you can do, this also works, is you can actually just sprint, jump, thrust, and hold jump. Don't press crouch at all, and it'll actually shoot you up high enough. It's almost like a thrust bump instead of like a thrust slide up here, and you can hold crouch and you should be able to land up here without a clamber. So now we're going to jump over here to timestamp 10:55. This is going to be looking at my awareness. So a fight here. And so this is me on red side. So the red flag is over here, obviously. So I'm now making a push. And you're going to see some things that happen in this moment. The moment I grab the flag, I get shut down. And so we're going to look at that again, and we're going to look at the where my teammates are in comparison and everything. So I'm going to turn on those outlines. And you're going to see quite a unique situation here. So from my perspective, I'm looking in. I see an opening. I don't think I see any enemy players over there, which I'm right, obviously. But if you look at where my teammates are, okay, we have one guy by our base who is able to catch my team off spawn. I didn't know that. So when I make this push, I have, sure, one teammate behind me and one to my other side, but there's these two enemies already putting pressure on M-Dog over here. And I bet this guy, XNSD, is going to get shot out by the red guy over by our hut. So I make this push here, all right? And I see that one guy by their flag. And I can also see that there's some shots. That's another big thing to remember, is when you're making movements on the map, look at where the bullets are traveling, and that'll tell you if there's an enemy or teammate there. Obviously, you'll know if it's your teammate because you'll see the waypoint. So you can see what's going on. And right at this moment, I see another teammate just died. So it's just me and some other guy. And now we're deep into enemy territory, and I'm not... When you see this, if you look, there's now 3 enemies in their base, and I'm here doing a solo push, right? Sure, I went out this gunfight here, and so now there's 2 enemies dead. But if you look, okay, now that my teammates are spawning, they are spawning on the other end of the map, all right? And I have very little help, and I'm one shot. And so what happens here is we're going to watch where the red team goes. And you're going to see, because they have ring 2 and the ring control, they're able to see multiple sides of the map really quickly. So when I make this push, right, I just killed a team, an enemy, so it's going to show up on their radar and their waypoint, so they're going to be looking over that way. So now I'm making this play, and guess what? This guy with the snipe over here, he's on me. So now, because I'm making this play here, I'm not being aware of, for one, where my teammates are, if it's even feasible for me to make a pull. Also, another lesson that I'm realizing is I'm not making any sort of awareness motion. So what I mean by that is, when we look through this again real quick, you're going to see when I go for this flag, look at where look at my screen, what I'm looking at. You're going to see that right here, I am in this gunfight, he drops. I now have this sightline, I'm in this gunfight. I see that I got the assist off of the guy that dropped. But I don't know where the other 2 enemies are. I just don't. So when I make this play, all I do is I check rocks, and that's it. I don't check their bond or ring or ring sight at all, and that was the issue. So now, as I make this play, sure, I wanted to get over there quickly, kind of push and put pressure on that spawn over by their rocks, but at this point, what I should have done is then taken a pause right here and check to see were there any enemies, and then at that point I would have seen this guy, and I would have made a better play, hopefully, and made better decision making about how to handle it with the sniper. But because I don't even look at that at all, I just go straight for the flag. I'm not taking time to be aware of the enemies around me, if there be any. So I just finished out the kills, went for the objective play without verifying the enemy positions. Now we're actually going to go to, it kind of ties in to the same concept of knowing when to play the objective over at 8:26 over here. So here I make another play for the flag, and we're going to watch how this unfolds. I must admit, I got really lucky there with that last snapshot. I should have been pulling out my pistol to continue with this gunfight. Okay. So let's rewatch that flag run again, and now let's be really conscious about where enemies are at, right? So following this gunfight, what I'm looking at is where the enemy is and where my teammates are, and I noticed something. So it's also really important to notice the kill feed during this. So we have this little fight that happens here. One down. One of our teammates down. By this time, that enemy is probably respawning again. I'm aware of that, but I know I'm having to pay attention to this guy. Okay, one down. Okay. And right here is where I see something. I see 3 teammates all in a line spread out through here, right? Or a little bit spread out. 2 are clustered, 1 is over here. But what I see is that I just secured this area of the map, and so I know that a big piece of philosophy that I kind of take into account a lot is wherever you are, the enemy isn't, and wherever you aren't, the enemy probably is, and that also applies to your teammates. So I look where there's a heavy concentration of teammates, and looking at where there's, well, that's probably where enemy isn't. And so what I'm seeing here is this is probably a good chance for me to run the flag closer to this side and have a lot of support fire and have that teammate help. So I go with that decision making, and so there I see 1 enemy go down, and I see this guy. I'm like, that's 3 accounted for. That 4th guy might be respawning soon, but I see where I'm at in the map. I'm like, you know what? I could probably go through with this. So that's where I make a mad dash into ring 1, because it's very enclosed. It's very hard to people get shots on you. And as you notice, right about here, I start getting shot from that 4th member who just spawned, right? Over by rocks. But because I knew, I saw those teammates where they were looking as well. They were paying attention to that rock side. So I knew I could probably make through with running this. And I cater to my right side, where there's gonna be a lot of teammates being able to cover my back. Okay? Because now if you look, the red team is spawning and getting a lot of opposition from blue team, and it's really high, and I knew I had the cover to run. So I knew I was able to pull there, even though my my teammates were all engaged in a firefight, I knew just with the way they were laid out, it was probably looking good for us to win those gunfights. So I knew this would be my opportunity to pull the flag, make the run down this path over here. All right, and then I had to get caught up, finish out this kill. So I just dived through this way to get myself cover. And I knew with the teammates putting down a lot of damage by the on the enemy team, I knew this was my chance to pull, so I did. And that was because all my teammates were alive. And I knew we were putting down a lot of damage and taking out the enemy. So in contrast, earlier when I made that aggressive push and the aggressive flag pull without checking to make sure things are proper, that's why I suffered there. So now we're going to skip over to 721. And this is all about kind of gunfight meta here. Let's see what's going on here. So I see the waypoint flag away, right? I am now in blue snipe spawn, blue hut, and I'm in a pretty good power position here. I have a lot of cover. I can see both our flag base and peek to my left and see into ringside and their under bridge. As I'm looking here, if you notice this play I do. Guess what happened? Because I gave up my better positioning, it costed me. I lost my life. I spawned in blue hut. I would have been perfectly okay with staying up here and looking at not dropping, because I can see there's a teammate already down here. In fact, there's two. They have that bottom angle, that bottom sight line done and accounted for. They have that secured. It would have been smarter for me to push this way to my right and cut off this angle of escape, right? It would have been much smarter for me to just strafe to my right and catch him up here, because he's going to try to, he was trying to make his way this way, right? And so, but because I overcommit to that gunfight there and I'm hungry for the kill, I now jump and give up my positioning, which then leads to a sacrifice here. Now because I'm down here at bottom, and for CTF on Refuge, its proximity does not increase or decrease flag return time. It is set to, I think, 12 seconds or something like that. It will always stay the same. No amount of teammates near it will speed it up or slow it down. So I do not need to be near that flag. My goal is to make sure that no enemies touch and reset the counter on that flag. But because I now gave up good positioning for it, I don't have any cover near me, right? XNSD over here, he's probably toast. And because I'm in this gunfight up at top, but yet I'm getting shot from over here at bottom bridge, right, by two guys. So I have three guys shooting at me, in theory. I'm not going to make it out. But if I was over here, okay, I would have been able to see this, and then the moment I start getting shot, guess what? I could have backed up and put myself in cover and actually been useful in this encounter. But because I was hungry for the kill and compromised good positioning, I paid for it right here. All right. Right there. So on contrast, we're going to skip to 652, and we're going to look at a gunfight that I do, okay? So in that engagement, even though I may have only gotten one kill, the one area I really want to point out was this over here. I'm moving, right? I'm looking, I see this guy, another champion. I'm shooting him under bridge. I then see that shot above me, and I'm starting to get shot from above as well. So now I have two enemies to worry about. So whenever that happens, you want to be aware of the geometry and the map around you to see what you can use to remove the threat of one enemy so that you only have one to worry about. So I do that by navigating here. I knew there was a rock behind me, so what I try to do is navigate behind it so that I can only worry about the guy up on top of that bridge. If another champion dude was still over here, if you look, I'm going to be behind that rock, and he won't have access to me. And so what I'm doing is I'm worrying about that guy who was at the bridge. I saw that he dropped, but also look at my movement, okay? Once I realize I'm getting shot from multiple places, I immediately make the decision to commit to one gunfight and not to alternate between the two or try to juggle both at once. I immediately remove and make a decision to remove this gunfight. I didn't know that another warrior dude just cut off the sightline and went straight to ring 1. From what I can tell, he's still just waiting around this corner over here, waiting to peek, right? So what I make to do is I make the conscious decision to just worry about the guy who dropped from the bridge, and I'm now navigating backwards in a pattern that's removing that sightline, okay? I thrust back in and make sure they can't see me. I'm just worrying about the guy who's up top at that bridge, okay? So I'm not worrying or having to I'm not giving myself to be seen by that guy who is in front of the ring. So then that's when I decide, once my shields are recharged and I see what's going on, I'm then able to make a better play. So I make this push here, and now you're gonna see right here, this kind of follows that same thing. I start taking fire, and another big thing is you have to look at the indicators where you're taking fire from, and that'll tell you where the sightline is, so I know they're probably by their snipe spawn. Okay, yep, by their snipe spawn and then beneath there. So I know when that happens, if I thrust this way, I'm now removing that sightline. Okay, so, and then when that happens, I also saw our flags away, and now let me, because I knew that sightline was covered. I knew in that instant they were by snipe spawn. I just removed that sightline. I'm okay for a few seconds to put down shots on on the enemy flag carrier. But I just want to point out there the movement that you have to sometimes, how important it is to be aware of the maps, know them intrinsically, so you know how to navigate without almost blindfolded. Right here is that example. I'm in one gunfight, I take shots from another, and I have to make a decision. Commit to one or the other, try to juggle both, and probably die. So I immediately, right, that little thrust that you just saw me do, I thought I was a little bit more back. I actually tried to thrust this way. It didn't work out. I just thrusted inside, so I had to actually back up this way. But that's me cutting off that sightline if I can, and committing to only being accessible by the bridge up there. So with that, you know, I did want to say that I'm not gonna go over the full game. I'm gonna try to keep these nice and concise and show you what I learned, what I'm gonna take from and try to implement in my gameplay. One of the best things I can say is also I will keep a link to the full game in the description. So if you guys want to dissect it, bag on me, say how bad of a player I am, that's fine. But I just want to go over some things that we learned every episode moving forward, just to make it concise and easy to carry it over to the next game that we play. So the first thing that I think that we learned is practice movement on new maps. Learn the jumps. With these new maps like Echelon, technically it's Sanctuary, but like, you know, these new maps, and then Fissure, just know how certain things work. You know, play it a few times and figure out some very necessary movement routes or jumps, and make sure you have them, experiment, make sure you have them cemented and concrete in your mind that you know that will work, and don't try to figure it out on the fly. Specifically with this, in this game, the thrust jump to Blue Bridge doesn't need a thrust slide unless you do it completely and correctly, or you can do the thrust and then hold jump, and you should be able to land on there just fine. After this match, I went and reviewed it, I saw it, and I went and practiced that, and I verified in my mind what will work, what's the surefire way to get this done, because I succeeded and also failed in the same game, so I want to make sure that I have that cemented. The second thing that we can learn is be aware of all players and their positions, both enemies and teammates. Know when you have teammates with you, and when you don't. When you're trying to make a play, whether it be Slayer or Objective, be aware of those waypoints on the radar and around you. where they're at and know, always try to keep tabs of where those teammates are and where the enemies are as well. And like I said, a good rule of thumb is where your teammate is, it's probably where the enemy isn't, obviously, and then you kind of get a feel for, well, a lot of my teammates are over here, that means enemies are probably this way. So specifically, like what happened in this game, take a beat, before making like an objective play, like pulling the flag or jumping into a stronghold. Make sure, like, just don't jump in blindly. Take a moment, okay, not too long, obviously, but just take a quick breather to think, teammates here, do I know where the enemies are at? Even if you have to engage in a gunfight with one of them, just take a moment that you can verify or have a good guess of where the enemies are. Because as you saw, I didn't, and I just went for the flag without even being aware of where those two enemies were. And if I would have taken a moment to do that, I might have been able to move forward with that play. And then also be cognizant of the map geometry. That's the third thing. Know what positions and objects offer cover. I don't give up good positioning just to chase a kill. And you want to know how to move the map almost blindfolded. That will take a lot of time, but it's worth it. Specifically, especially in this map, because of how big the open areas are. If you look, these sightlines are huge. Just from rocks all the way over, you can have a sightline all the way over to the opposite hut. Over here, like when you're in an open area on Refuge, you are at a big risk from getting shot by the enemy. So specifically for this map, avoid dropping down to the open areas, because you'll probably get shot from multiple angles from multiple enemies. That happened numerous times this game. So always, that's why you see ring be such a valued position, because it is so enclosed. You can cut off those sight lines so much more easily. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. It's something new. I'm just going to share, again, my learning experience as I strive to get better. And with that, if you guys liked, be sure to like. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Also, leave a comment down below if you found this useful. Even if there's anything else in my gameplay that you found, that'd be great. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.